come to be here with us this morning. And those that are listening on Facebook or what's the YouTube, I can't think of it. Well, I can't think of them. I couldn't think of them before. So I don't know what they are. We welcome you to the Pansy Baptist Church here in Pansy. And today's, we're going to be looking at the fullness of time. It is a verse out of the letter of the Apostle Paul that wrote in Galatians. In Galatians 4:4 it said, "But when the fullness of the time was come, God sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons." So, that we might be saved. When the fullness, and the phrase there, when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his Son, made of a woman. Now, in the fullness, that is a word that means completeness. God worked through eons and centuries. Sometimes it is only the passing, things may pass in years, and other things may pass in years and years and years, that we are to find out what the ultimate purpose of God is. I think of around here, I know it seems so cold. Most of y'all know that. It seems so cold. You might have a scene here, but it might be way down somewhere else. Or it might be completely, well, the same with cold. It may be very low. It may be very high, just according where you're at, where it is. And you can see these valleys around here they was up there at the mountaintop till water finally cut them out. So God works in millions of years. He never gets in a rush. He's never in a hurry. He never, his work is always at his speed. Anthropologists tells us that compared to the age of creation, that the age of man is like a nickel. You put it on the Empire State Building. The age of man is like a nickel to the Empire State Building. So that tells you something about time. Here we see that, speaking of time, you have that so many times we have that in the English language. We have the word that is used here is like a set time is in chronology or in chronics order, a set time. So in the mind and the purpose of it, he set a time through all the centuries in preparation to set a time for our Lord's coming into the world. There was a time, he had set a time for his crucifixion, his rising from the dead, from his glorious return, and sitting at the right hand of the Father, and his return from heaven. Now, in the 11th chapter of the book of Romans, he said there in verse 25, "I would not have you without knowledge, my brother, concerning the mysteria." That's the word that is used here. This secret God has in his heart, a mystery. That blindness part happened to Israel until, and here it is, here until the fullness of the Gentile become in. So there was a set time for the coming of our Lord back to earth, known to God. It was a secret of God. It was referred to in the Bible as a mystery, So it's a secret that God had in his own heart. Thus the apostle says that in the fullness of the preparation, in the completeness of the age, God sent forth his Son, made of a woman. First, the ecclesiastic preparation, the religious preparation. The astonishing thing how God, in his judgment, allowed Israel to be taken captivity by the Babylon in their desperation and in their slavery. Now, in Psalms 13, it said, by the river Babylon, there we sat, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hanged our harps upon the willow in the midst thereof, for they that carried us away captive required us a song, and they that wasted us required of us myrrh, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. How can we sing the song in a strange land? If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunningness. Let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth, if I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. You can't read that 113th Psalm without a sense of despair and agony of those people. But out of it, God had only a heavenly purpose. In the fullness of time, three things came out of the Babylonian captivity. The first one, there was no more many gods, multitude of gods. The Jews had only one God after they was in captivity. They came out of Babylon, and another is that there came out of Babylon the captivity of sorrow and agony of that slavery. There came the Bible. Ezra and the great synagogues gathered. You can see today, even today, that the Jews, as he stands there in the middle of the congregation, he is holding the Bible, the scroll. And so you can see that they come out of Babylon with the thought of not only one God, but also the Bible. We also see another thing that God done. And he gathered them into the synagogues. See, the temple and all the other things, the priest and all them was gone. There wasn't nothing. So all they could do was go to the synagogue. Synagogues were set up for that one purpose. And so it was a symbol of God's people. And so in the fullness of God, what would have been taught would have been realized. That out of the tragedy that took place in Babylon, here we see the fullness of what was presented to God. One God, the Bible, and also the synagogue. See, they didn't have no synagogues up until they went into captivity. That's where synagogues started from. And so, in the fullness of God, the moving in human history, you see the preparation that one who is born of a woman. You remember Alexander the Great? He conquered the whole civilized world in 336 BC. The whole earth was under Greek control. Now, Greek institutions, Greek culture, Greek philosophy, Greek literature, and the Greek language. From one side of the Mediterranean to the other was nothing but Greeks, Hellenistic. And so they all spoke Greek. And when Alexander the Great died, his empire was divided up among his his 4 generals, who divided this vast empire of his. One of the generals got Mesopotamia, that is Greece, and the Greek Empire in Europe. The other took Asia Minor, and the other took Syria, and the last one took Egypt. So we see these 4 generals divide up the whole world among themselves. And what's amazing is that the whole earth spoke one common language. Little did they realize, and I don't think Alexander the Great realized, you know, when Alexander the Great come down through the Gulf there, there the priest of Israel come out and meet him, and they didn't destroy him. They just went off. But see, he destroyed the other countries along that coastline. And Paul wrote a letter in Rome, and the book of Romans, he wrote it in Greek. John, the Saint John, wrote to 7 churches in Asia. In Revelation, he wrote it in Greek. So there was a common language which the gospel would be preached to every nation, every civilized family, and people under the sun. So in the fullness of time, in the preparation of God, of the world for the gospel of Christ, everything was written in Greek. Now look again at the political preparation. Rome bound together by its highways. You still hear of Rome and its highways. Its roads that they built. Now, here was a road that they was laced with that from Great Britain, the whole known world was laced with Roman roads. They had the best postal system ever was. Even better than today. That wouldn't say much, but it was better than today's. Because there were letters, and then they had a temple that was in Rome that they had a statue of Janus. Janus is where we get January. Remember that most of our calendar is Roman. That's the reason Easter never falls on the same day or the same time. Sometimes it falls in April, sometimes it falls in March. It's just according, because the Jews has the correct calendar. We don't. That's the reason we have to constantly adding to it to get it correct. So, Jason, they had a temple there. And if the roads were open, he was a god of war. If the Roman Empire was not at war, the gates were open. If they was closed, that meant that there was war somewhere. So, the gates was closed or open, and the family of the world was at peace. In those years and years, when God sent his son, born of a woman, the gates there were closed above the temple, because there was no war. The world was at peace. And the highways were open before them, and the preachers of the gospel, the Son of God, went forth all over the world. It was open road. They had that's what they call the Roman peace. I forgot what it was called. But anyway, in the fullness of time, the Roman Caesar didn't realize what he was doing. And so, in the fullness of God in the world, moved through history. And sometimes it takes centuries to see what God is doing. But if we trust, if we have faith, His purpose will be fast, unfolding every hour. So in the fullness, the purpose of God in human history. So, the fullness of God, the preparation of God for the coming of His Son into a world, the personal preparation of our blessed Lord. The book of Revelation, the Apocalypse, has most useful reference. He said, He is the Lamb slain before the foundation of the world. So, in the heart of God, from the beginning, all the beginnings, God's purpose that His Son come into the world that He might redeem us. And the purpose of God, somewhere in the ages past, the Son volunteered, said, Lo, I come to do thy will, O God. Body hast thou prepared for me. That's in the book of Hebrews 10. And the author of the Hebrew, verily he took not upon him the nature of angels, but took upon him the seed of Abraham, and made in the fashion such as we, that might be faithful high priest, and tried in all points, we though he was without sin. The purpose of God before the world was that the seed of the woman. Now, I tried to mention that last week. I know I didn't do it right. But women did not have seeds. Nowhere you find in the Bible where a woman is called a seed. But we have here the seed of the woman. She bruised or busted Satan's head, crushed it. That's what it's saying. So, then calling out Abraham, in thy seed. There's Abraham. In thy seed, as one. Paul said, in the seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And then in Micah, thou, Bethlehem, Ephraim, little though you be among the thousand, yet out of thee shall he come, who shall rule my people Israel, whose going forth are from old, even everlasting. He that began in that little town of Bethlehem, his beginning was the purpose of God's grace in heaven. So in the fullness of time, in the fullness of the preparation, down the rocky road traveled Mary, great with child, and Joseph by her side, in the fullness of time, in the completion of this preparation. The Lord came to the world born, made of a woman. So the angels would sing from heaven, this shall be a sign, and a sign you shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling cloths. Did you ever, he didn't have a little dress. Didn't have little clothes. What he had was garments, rags, swaddling rags, wrapped him. This shall be a sign to you. You will find the babe wrapped in swaddling cloths, lying in a manger. You'll find the Lord in a manger, in rags, cloths. It's a sign that be wonderful through all time and all eternity. Womanhood will be glorified, motherhood will be sanctified, childhood was glorified. The sign of God's grace and love outpoured, redeemed for us, a babe lying in the manger. So in the fullness of time, God, at the time chosen, his purpose from the beginning, before the world was ever made, he came and made of a woman that he might redeem himself. He is the reason for Christmas. Remember that. This is the whole reason for Christmas. Is that Jesus was born. Made a woman to redeem us. Nothing else, let's stand.